An ad from DraftKings, a sports gambling website, is raising some eyebrows now. It's advertising a deal that's now live in Missouri.
But the Missouri Gaming Commission says that sports betting is not yet operational in the state and no licenses have yet been awarded. WGM's Missouri Capitol reporter Hannah Falcon looks into why this is legal and why it's not sports betting.
New Pick 6 players play $5 to get 50 in Pick 6 credits. And
this spot advertising a Pick 6 DraftKings special that's now live in Missouri is perfectly legal and correct. But it might be confusing on first watch. It appears to be a sports betting commercial, but sports betting licenses have not yet been awarded here in Missouri. However, if you watch closer, you'll see why it's legal.
Check this out, the newest fantasy game from DraftKings.
Did you catch that?
Fantasy game.
It's advertising a fantasy game. And betting on fantasy sports is legal and regulated in Missouri. The Missouri Gaming Commission regulates fantasy sports, but it's still going to be several months until the infrastructure is set up for sports betting.
We've got that small, intense group of people that already are at the Gaming Commission, led by our executive director, to make sure that we're not missing anything.
Betting on fantasy sports is not new. Companies like DraftKings can use this as an avenue to make money in states where sports betting is not legal, or in Missouri's case, not yet operational. Compare this map of where the DraftKings Pick 6 deal is available to this map from the American Gaming Association of states where sports betting is legal. Not including Missouri, you'll notice 8 states where you can get this DraftKings deal, but sports betting is not legal. The reason for this? The Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006, which designates fantasy sports as a game of skill, not a game of chance like sports betting. Because of this, betting on fantasy sports is not considered gambling. The Missouri Gaming Commission tells me it hopes to have sports betting operational later this year. In the meantime, avid sports fans and gamblers will have to stick to fantasy sports.
We are still very hopeful that we'll be, ready to go by mid to late summer.
The Missouri Gaming Commission's regular meeting is Wednesday to continue its work towards sports betting setup. Reporting in Jefferson City, I'm Hannah Falcon, WGEM News.